Hello and welcome back to the podcast. So today, I first of all, I want to just be like, okay, I have been recording downstairs in the studio for a while, and I like use my really swanky microphone, um, which makes it really 10 times cooler because it's like, wow, I feel like an actual podcaster. But at the same time, there has been so much on my mind to get financial fitness prepped and ready. I've been building out the portal and building out the videos for probably more or less the last 2 weeks. And I would even go as far as to say, like, this has been a work in progress for the last 2 months. I didn't have any idea what I wanted to do with financial fitness in early 2024, like in January. I had no idea that I was even going to be doing financial fitness. I actually, like, if you were to ask me in December what I was going to be doing, I was going to tell you that I was going to do digital products because I actually created a $2 digital download on TikTok and sold $3,000 worth of that $2 digital download. So if you asked me in December where I was going to be going, I was going to tell you I was going to be talking about digital products and digital downloads and building a business off of digital products and digital downloads because I had sold like 1,500 plus digital downloads to make 3 grand. And I basically had this one video where I was talking about making money and it just took off. And like, don't get me wrong, I didn't know that I really didn't know that it was going to take off. But like I had been in accounting, I had really wanted to talk about money for a good portion of this online journey. And I remember back in July of 2021, I was in the I went to this retreat in Sedona. I was in the retreat. I was sitting outside with my mentor, and she was talking to me about how she was so jealous of somebody else in the online space. And I told her, I was like, you have no idea what money that, like, you have no idea where that's even coming from. You have no idea where that's going to. You have no idea if that's profit. And like, I was sitting there, I was breaking down like revenue versus profit versus expenses. Like, basically, like, you have no idea how much money they're putting out for, any of their like life or any debt that they're carrying. And like, yeah, okay, she markets online that she's making this much money or she has this much money, but does she really, like, really it just takes a little bit more financial investigation. And so that aside, that was slightly tangential, but that aside, I have always kind of known that money has been a very important part of my journey here. I remember when I was 17, I cashed out my bonds. My great grandmother gave my brother and I a bunch of bonds, and they matured when I was 17. I took the money and I put it into a mutual fund and I just let it sit there. And recently I've been touching it, but there's still money in the fund. And had I not done that, then I wouldn't be able to touch it for anything. But my point is, I even remember like my grandmother teaching us how to gamble with pennies and like I must have been like 6 or 7 years old and she's sitting at the table down the shore and teaching us how to play poker. And it's been money has always been something so very prominent and in the forefront of my life. And it didn't dawn on me that this was going to be the direction that I would even want to take my business in even just 2 months ago in December. And my god, I'm so glad I'm so grateful that video went viral because I could sit here and talk about money all damn fucking day. Like, I really do love it. I love talking about accounting. So, like, in the business sense, I love talking about credit cards and personal finance and budgeting. I love talking about expenses. I love helping other people get a better understanding of what it is that they have to do to accomplish the financial goals that they have for themselves. And it really is like, it's so natural for me. Like, numbers just make sense to me. And for a lot of people, those numbers don't make sense to them. And it just blows my mind sometimes because I'm like, well, how did I even get into the position that I'm in? Like I know I'm good with money, and I know that I've been doing this for such a long time, but like it makes me wonder sometimes how I even got into this debt. And so I want to kind of unravel that today in this episode because I feel like a lot of it has to do with marketing, obviously. Um, a lot of us are marketed at and marketed to online, and we're not necessarily seeing the result that we want to be seeing because we're marketed at, we're marketed to, and oftentimes we fall for the marketing. And when I think back to my very first investment, I actually did see something good come out of it. Like I created this group program and I had a bunch of people sign up. And granted, they weren't from online, like they were not online, true online leads. A lot of them were already in my world and they were local to where I am. And the reason why they did it is because of what happened with the pandemic. There were no gyms that were open. There was no way that we could go down to the club and row. Just to give a little background, I set up a group coaching program for rowers that they could do online. And it was basically like a workout program. And so I had one, two, three, four. I had four people join on that first launch, but like I remember it was like not enough. Like I was like, this isn't enough. Like this is not it. Like I'm missing something. And so I signed up for another course, and the course was this next program that I signed up for was all about how when you make a bigger impact, you make a bigger income. And I went through the 3 months and I got nothing out of it. I got nothing out of it. It was nothing to do with creating a bigger impact or creating a bigger income. It was so very it was so very it was like not concise or dispersed. Like the coaching and the support wasn't there. And I felt I left that program even more confused, and I was like, the last 3 months were a waste of my life. Like, it was a waste of my time, a waste of my money. What did I get out of this? And it led me to reaching out to one of the mentors that person who I signed up for their program was. She couldn't speak any more highly of them. And so I took their mastermind, and I actually wound up going in a direction where I created a physical product, and I actually did do pretty well making sales of that physical product for a little bit. I had to do a lot of pre-sales because the way that you put in the order with the Alibaba um, company who I got the notebooks from, it was like an 8 week lead time. So I needed to wait 8 weeks until I could even get the material. And so I had a lot of pre-sales, but then after a little while, like things dry up, and then you have to kind of, it's like waiting. You're like waiting here for another 6 to 8 weeks for the products to come in so that you can ship them. And so, like, it was difficult managing and like juggling this. And I was like, okay, this is working, but I wasn't in love with it. It wasn't my idea. Like when I think back to it, it was one of the mentors who I hired. It was her idea. And she basically kind of was like, hey, you're good at this. Go in this direction. And notes can sometimes be, I wouldn't even go into sometimes. Like to me, notes is not, it's not a viable market. If you're a notebook seller, yeah, then it'll be viable. But if you're looking to sell a program on how to take better notes, really the market that you want to be aiming for is parents of kids in school. That's your market, not really entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs is they don't give a shit about taking notes. They give a shit about what their revenue looks like. So it was really difficult because I wasn't really targeting the right market, and it was really hard and really difficult for me to target the right market online at the time. So, what wound up happening was I was still doing a lot of these sales for this notebook, and I just so happened to get two sales from just completely out of nowhere. And I talked about it on TikTok because one of my friends had mentioned to use this manifestation code and it'll bring in more abundance. I was like, oh my God, it totally did. I got two sales from out of nowhere. And so I shared about it on TikTok, and then my TikTok went viral. And I was like, what in the name of the good God just happened? And I kept getting this question in my comments section. It was like, how do I do this? How do I use these codes? How do I do this? And so I created a 2-page PDF and I sold it for $2.50. And I must have sold like 1,508 of them. I did like a little over $3,000 worth of revenue from that $2 digital download. That literally took me like maybe an hour to make. And so I was like, oh yes, like I had a little momentum going for me again. And then things kind of dried up a little bit. But what wound up happening was there were a lot of people who were like, well, how do I get my own notebook made? Or how do I get my own office supplies line made? And so I kind of was like, oh, well, maybe I could do done for you services. And really, that just blew up in my face. That did not go anywhere. Nobody was interested in done for you services for office supplies or stationery. It's not something that you urgently need, so it's really hard to work in that direction. Doesn't matter. At the time I had a lot of people asking me how I went viral on TikTok, anyways. So I wound up going in this content marketing direction, and then in July when I was on that retreat, we were all talking about video and video marketing, understanding the TikTok platform better, understanding, Instagram Reels started to become a huge thing at the time. And I was like, what, I'm going to release this 1 week, I guess you could call it like a mini mind. It was like a 1 week workshop program. And it was all about Instagram Reels. And it was about like basically increasing your confidence around Instagram Reels and like making video. And I had probably about 6 or 7 signups, but it was like, actually, no, it wasn't 6 or 7. It was $100 for the week. And I made $1,100. So I must have sold 11 spots. I think only 6 or 7 people showed up religiously, which is why I'm like 6 or 7. But I remember making $1,100. Anyways, um, so I had sold this workshop, and then after I did this workshop, I was like, I don't really know what to do. Like, I did this group program in May, and it did really well. I had 12 signups. I oversold. I did this workshop. I went on the retreat. I was co-coaching for a sales mastermind. And I felt like I was doing so much work, but I wasn't seeing the real results that I wanted to see. And I just felt like I was right back where I was from the very start. Like, even not even the very start, I would say from that second program, like, what am I even doing? Like, what am I missing? And I just reached this point where I was like, I can't do this. And like, I don't want to do this. It's making me frustrated. I don't like some of the people that I'm talking to. Like, what am I even doing going down this direction? And um I even had somebody tell me, they're like, you know, I don't know what it is that you do. Like, what do you even do? You're this notebook girl, and then you talk about codes, and now you're talking about video. Like, what is it that you even do? I was like, I feel like they all kind of play into each other. Like, the notebook is the reason why, like, me making sales of the notebook using the codes was how I got into the codes. And the codes going viral was how I got into the content. Like, it's a very easy, simple step by step for me. Like, each one pours into the other. But like for that person, it didn't seem to make sense. And like, you'd think that 2 or 3 years later, I'd get over that shit. And I think I'm like reaching a point where I could finally say, yeah, I'm closer to being over it. But for the sake of this episode, because she said that to me, it really put me in this spiral. I was like, I don't even want to do this anymore. Like, I don't want anything to do with anything online. I really feel like I want to do something in person right now. And so I basically kind of disappeared from the online space, and I was like, you know what, fuck this. Like, it's like so dramatic and it's so blah, and I'm not seeing the results that I want to see. Like, I'm putting in all of this effort, I'm putting in all of this work, and I'm not getting the return. So I was like, you know what? Screw it. I'm gonna do something in person. And at the time, Tommy, my partner Tommy, he was going into Wayfair services. And so he was like, hey, come help me build this business. And we did fairly well with Wayfair. We had two 10K months, one in October, one in November. We did $8,000 in December, $6,000 in January of 2022. But by that point in time, the issue then became, all right, I'm 3 months pregnant. Like, I don't have the same capacity to do work as I did before. And so I was like, all right, I guess I gotta go try and go back online. And so I was like, all right, well, let me try and pick up where I left off, which was content marketing, video marketing. And I just felt like I was like pushing against like a rock solid door. Like, I felt like I was going nowhere. I didn't enjoy it. It made me angry. It made me defeated. I felt so defeated. And I felt so hopeless. And I was like, I fell off the horse again in 2022. I stopped posting. I basically went silent. And it's like, okay, Fallon, when are you gonna pick up your fucking when are you gonna pick up your bag and like get to work? And so then I tried again in 2023, even after Penelope came, and I was like, you know what, I have to at least try. And I wanted to do two things in 2023. I wanted to get a website. I did get my website, and I wanted to I wanted to get my marketing done. And I did get my marketing done. And I still love my freaking brand kit. Oh my God, I love my brand kit. I might have tweaked it a little bit. Becca, if you're listening, please don't kill me. But it's because ultimately I went through this, I guess you could call it like a season in the summer of 2023 where I was like, okay, I'm going to try and do this again. Like, I'll hire a coach and do it again. And I was like, I really want to talk about my debt. And I remember saying that to her, and she basically turned around and said, well, you really don't want to talk about your debt because you don't want people to think of you as like a victim, or like to know that you have this like negative connotation with your finances. Like, you don't want to put that out there. Like, you could talk about it and like give an update every once and again, but I really wouldn't showcase it as like a brand pillar if I were you. And when she said that, I was like, it put a bad taste in my mouth. And, we went on to do a couple of things, and we did a podcast, and I listened to the podcast that we did together, and the way that she ended the podcast, I was like, I am not paying you anymore. Like, that's not how you do a podcast, in my opinion. It made me feel like she was promoting herself through showcasing me on her show. And I was like, I never want to be promoting myself where like I have somebody else come onto my show and then I showcase myself because of what happened between you and I, or whoever and I on my show. Like, that person is the hero of my show because they're coming on with valuable information, and I am just the vessel. Like, I am just the person providing a new set of ears, a new couple of people for them to grow their community. Like, it made me feel like I was so low and such like, it was like, well, she came on my podcast and she's my client and this is what we do in my program. I was like, no, get me out. And so I canceled and I was like, I don't even know what the fuck to do. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to focus on paying off my debt and continuing to pay off my debt. Like, I had made some progress by that point, and it was the summertime, but I was like, I'm not going to hire anybody. I'm not going to do anything until I feel like I'm at a more secure place. And ultimately what wound up happening was I had a very good friend reach out to me in probably the end of November, December, and she was like, "Hey, do you want to do this certification?" And I had been talking back and forth with her for a long time in 2023, and I was like, I actually think I will, because I actually think that it can play some portion of it can play into the journey that I'm on and the business that I'm looking to build and create. And so I decided to get my NLP certification starting January of 2024. And so I did the first step in December of 2023. So I made the commitment in December of 2023, and I was like, I'm going to do this. Like, there's going to be a way that this is going to play into my business, and I'm going to figure it out, and it's going to be great. Like, I know, like, I can feel like I'm on to something brilliant. But it took me like 2020, 2021, 2022, and 2023 for me to get to the point of feeling like, okay, I can do this. I have this under my control. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to go in this direction of digital products because I have this story and I have this experience, and I can use that as like more or less authority for me to be in the digital product space. And so I started creating videos and I started creating posts about it. It really kind of didn't go anywhere. I joined this Reels challenge. I started putting out more Instagram Reels, and I I don't think my Instagram Reels really went as far as I wanted them to go. Um, but what did happen was that one TikTok went viral. And like, keep in mind, I had already talked about my debt journey in the summer of 2023, and I had already said, I really want to talk about my debt in terms of my content to one of these coaches, right? And so I already knew that I kind of wanted to talk about my debt and highlight my debt journey as part of what I was going to do in my brand. And like, then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I was talking to the controller of the company that I worked for, and I was like, I have to wonder what would happen. Like, how does a check get deposited? Like, what happens to the money? And he's like, an accounting course would do you a lot of good. And I was like, yeah, that sounds like a good idea. And he's like, I will have the company pay for it. And I was like, yes, sign me up. Free money, So I signed up for accounting, and I was taking accounting from October to December of 2023. So, like, this entire time, I've had this money story going, and it took me until that video going viral for me to be like, oh my God, this is the direction I've been meant to go on the entire time. And yes, I understand. Like, I could have easily decided that from the beginning, but I wouldn't have had the transformational journey if I didn't get to this point in time right now. And I just put up a video at some point this past week. I don't know, it was Tuesday or Wednesday. I'd have to hold on. I'm pulling it up on TikTok right now. It's at 647.9 thousand views. I put up another video and it's at 259.8 thousand views. I have another one it's very close. It's like 60 views away from 10K. And so, like, I know that my content is landing on and reaching the right people. But, like, it took me until now. It took me this whole journey of getting into debt, learning about accounting, learning about business to get to this point of realizing that I have been meant for money this entire time. And I guess what I'm trying to get at in this episode, which I don't even know how long it's been at this point, probably 20, 30 minutes, what I'm trying to get at is you have a journey, you have a transformation or a journey you've been on that you can capture and you can use to your advantage. And a lot of people, and if you asked me this 2 or 3 years ago, I would have been in this boat. I would have been like, I'm in so much debt. How can this possibly be a good thing? Right? Like, that was in 2021. I was like, I said so many times, I'm in so much debt. How could this possibly be a good thing? And people would always tell me, oh, just be grateful for it. Be grateful for it. Like, how could you possibly be grateful for it, right? Like, there's no way at that moment in time that I could be grateful for being in that much debt. But now I sit here and I look at my journey to this point, and had I not ever been in that much debt, I wouldn't have overcome 5 figures in 2023. And had I not overcome that debt, I wouldn't have taken an accounting class. I wouldn't have taken finance classes. Had I not been in that debt, I wouldn't have started to go in that direction in my job at work. Like, had I not been in that debt, I wouldn't be talking about it in this podcast episode. I wouldn't have even probably created the podcast. And I sure as shit know that I wouldn't be as consistent as I've been with the podcast. So, like, it's really, I realize how difficult it is sometimes to like sit in that gratitude, but that journey, that transformation, when you come to a point of like, wow, I have made so much progress. I'm better than I was a year ago. Then you could stand on it and you could be grateful for it, and it will change everything. Oh my god, it will change everything that you know about business and money and personal development and so much more. So I don't even really remember the beginning of what I was talking about in the beginning of this podcast, but this has really been on my heart tonight because I've been filling out a lot of the videos in the modules for financial fitness, and I didn't start building it until January. And in all honesty, it's like almost March. Like, it's February 17th right now. It's nearly March, and I'm like still not done. And I'm like 10 days away from opening the doors. And like, I just really, I want for this to be built and for this to be just done. Like, I've done the foundational work. I've obviously gone through the transformation. I got the portal. I've been making the presentation slides and the videos, and that's been the biggest chunk of my time this last couple of weeks, these last couple of days, in addition to building out the master financial file that I wanted to go with it. So, that all being said, like, I think maybe a future episode is going to be when you build it, they will come. And that is going to be a different, I don't want to spoil it, but more or less it has to do with like building out your program and just how you market it and how you do business with it. So anyways, going back to the point here, you do have a transformational journey. You do have evidence. You do have something that you could use to your advantage that you will find is going to be the core and the center of your business. And I want to encourage you to run with it. I want to encourage you to move forward with it and to feel so utterly confident in it. Like, when I show up now and I talk about debt and I talk about money and I talk about finances, I'm like, I feel so secure and so confident in myself. And I don't care who says what in my comments section, because I love this area of work. I love it. And I will continue to learn about it. I will continue to help others. And I will continue to serve others because it's not about me. It's about them. It's about taking what I have gone through and taking what I have learned to better serve them. It is 100% for their favor. And like, even I think of Penelope, right? Like, she's so little right now and she's learning so much. She's such a sponge right now. She repeats everything. She's like a little parrot. But like, she's going to have so much knowledge around wealth and around finances and around business that like, I wish that my parents, I wish like my family grew a business and I watched them scale a business to millions when I was younger. Like, it started out as like this, like, there were 5 desks scrunched into one little office space, and they built it so that they had a branch in Maryland and a branch in North Carolina and a branch in Georgia, and they moved out to Chicago and then St. Louis. And the entirety of my childhood, I watched them build this empire. And I don't think I learned the first damn thing about business except the customer is always right. Like that was probably one of the biggest, and granted it is a very important business lesson, but you'd think that you would learn more about how money moves or how to build a business or how to talk to people or how to make sales. And I feel like I didn't learn one of those things. And it could have been because I wasn't interested at the time. That could very well have been the case. Or it could have been because it wasn't actually material that was taught to me. I don't remember. But what I do remember was sitting in that scrunched up office and learning my multiplication tables. And I do remember sitting in that scrunched up office and looking at the pictures that were under my dad's desk, because he had like glass on top of his desk. And I remember running around the warehouse, and there was an office space in the back of the warehouse before they tore it down. And I remember going in the truck with him, right? Like, I don't remember a whole lot about learning, but I remember this experiences, and I remember what fun I had. So, all of that to say, this is a longer episode today, and I'm sure that if you're still sticking around, you're sticking around more for the experiential wisdom that I've gotten through in this episode. But more or less, I just I'm so grateful that I went on this journey and I've learned so much. And if you have any questions at all, please send me a DM. Let me know what you want to know more of. I would love to help you and to serve you and to provide you with the specific information that it is that you're looking for. Maybe one of these episodes I'll talk about credit utilization, because that is a huge reason as to why I was able to do what I did with my debt last year. And I want to say thank you, and I'm very grateful for you tuning into these episodes. Sometimes they're a little off the cuff, like today's. Sometimes they're a little more structured, but every episode I bring the intention and the goal is to serve you with the best information and the best experience that I could possibly provide you. My hope is to bring in more guests for you in this coming year, and to also be on more podcasts as a guest myself. We'll get to that another day. Different story for a different episode. But I do want to thank you so much for your loyalty and for tuning in and for listening, and for any questions that you do send to me, because every question counts, and every DM counts, and every part of it counts. So I want to say thank you so much, and I will talk to you soon.